Virginia 10, where our great candidate, Jennifer Wexton, is going to beat Barbara Comstock. And we're knocking on doors, making calls every day. And the Democracy Summer Fellows call Barbara Comstock Barbara Bumpstock because of her A-plus rating from the NRA, right down the line with the NRA. And we're going to win in the 5th Congressional District in Virginia with Leslie Coburn. And we're going to win with Abigail Spanberger in the 2nd. We're going to really turn Virginia blue. But remember, it's not going to be easy because we're up against a wall of gerrymandered districts in Virginia, in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, in Ohio. All of these are basically blue states, but they've got Republican legislatures, and we're gerrymandered basically 2-1, in some cases 3-1 in these states. So we're going to only be able to beat them through the sheer force of political will. And that means knocking on doors. Now, they asked me to tell you a story about knocking on doors, which is my favorite activity. Call me crazy, okay? But I love canvassing and door knocking. So they asked me to tell you a story. So I'm going to tell you a story about my late father, Marcus Raskin, who we lost on Christmas Eve of last year. And so my dad, some of you knew him, was a political philosopher, and he was kind of in the clouds. And but I always wanted him to come canvass with me. This is my first race for office back in 2006 for state senate. So finally I got him to come out. It was a brutally hot day. It was like 95 degrees. And I said, Dad, you take this side of the street in Silver Spring, I'll take the other side. But the one thing is, if you see my sign up, don't go to that house. If you see a sign up for my opponent, don't go to that house. Those people are already committed, go to the other ones. And so my dad said, okay, in that way that made it clear he wasn't going to listen to what I just said. So I took off on the odd side of the street, and he's got the even numbers. And sure enough, I turn around and he's gone to the first house, which has my opponent's sign at it. So I just said, all right, whatever. And I keep going down the street, and every time I look back, he's still at the same house. I get all the way to the end of the street, he's still at the same house. And then, as I'm walking back, all of a sudden, I see he comes out, and they put up one of my signs right next to the sign of my opponent, my friend Ida Rubin, okay? And then I get even closer, and then they take my opponent's sign, they turn it upside down. So I'm really freaking out at this point, and so I come up, and then one of the interns, who was assigned to be walking with my dad, comes running over, and I said, what just happened? He said, it's the damnedest thing I ever saw. He goes up and he introduces himself and knocks on the door, and the guy's a professor at the University of Maryland. So they start talking about Bertrand Russell and St. Thomas Aquinas and Spinoza. They're doing like the whole history of Western philosophy. Finally, your dad says to him, well, my son's running for the state senate. I'm wondering if you would put his sign up. And then, so the gentleman says, well, actually, somebody had asked me before if I would put a sign up for Ida Rubin. And then he said, okay, but did you tell them you wouldn't put a sign up for my son? And then he said, no, I guess I didn't. He said, well, let's put that one up. And they put that up. And then, so then my dad said to him, and when you said that you would put his opponent's sign up, did you say you would put it right side up? Or did you say, he said, no, I guess I didn't. And so they turned upside down, and I've got this photo in my office of the upside down sign. So what do you learn from it? You don't give up on anybody. You go fight for every single vote. You go talk to everybody, all right? And I want to tell you about that race because I was outspent 2.5 to 1. I was running against a 32-year incumbent who was president pro tem on the Senate, of the Maryland Senate. We knocked on 17,000 doors. And when I announced, my favorite story is the newspaper Post had an article saying, quoting a pundit who said Raskin's chances of victory are considered impossible. And 9 months later, we got 67% of the vote. They had another article quoting a pundit who said Raskin's victory was inevitable. So we went from impossible to inevitable. That's our job. We're going to take back Congress, the House, and the Senate. We're going to make the impossible inevitable through political organizing and through the force of our political principles. And I just want you to know, when I announced that day, I laid out everything I wanted to do, and I said, we're going to abolish the death penalty in Maryland, and we're going to pass marriage equality in Maryland, and we're going to pass the toughest gun safety law in the country in Maryland, and we're going to dramatically lower greenhouse gas emissions. And I went through the whole thing, and a woman came up to me afterwards, she said, Jamie, great speech, I love your speech, but one thing, take out everything you got in there about gay marriage. This is in 2006. She She said, because, it's never going to happen. And it's never going to happen. Even the gay candidates don't talk about it. And it makes you sound like you're really extreme, like you're not in the political center. And I had to swallow hard because I didn't want to offend her. But I said, you know what? I'm really glad you're telling me that because it makes me realize that it is not my ambition to be in the political center, which blows around with the wind. It's my ambition to be in the moral center. That's why I'm a Democrat. That's why I'm a progressive. We've got to find the moral center the best we can and bring the political center to us through organizing. And we abolished the death penalty, and we passed marriage equality, and we passed the toughest gun safety law in America. We dramatically reduced greenhouse gas emissions. We restored voting rights to the former presidents. Government works in democracy. Politics works in democracy if you organize and you engage. We've shown them in Maryland. We are the beacon. We are the hope. We can show them how it's done. I'm going to leave you with the words of a few people. The great Marylander Frederick Douglass, who said, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. The struggle might be moral, it might be physical, it might be moral and physical, but there must be struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. That's Frederick Douglass speaking to us in 2018, speaking across the generations. And here's the great Thomas Paine. And Tom Paine wrote at the time of the American Revolution. It was a tough time. People didn't know which way things were going. Everybody thought you can't beat a king, you can't beat the crown, you can't beat monarchy and theocracy. And he wrote this pamphlet called The Crisis. And I'm going to just update the language a bit so it doesn't offend modern sensibilities. But he said, these are the times that try men and women's souls. These are the times that try men and women's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will shrink at this moment from the service of their cause in their country. But everyone who stands with us now will win the love and the favor and the affection of every man and every woman for all time. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, but we have this saving consolation. The more difficult the struggle, the more glorious in the end is our victory. That victory is going to be ours on Tuesday, November 6th.